So good afternoon. I'm Paul Brest, as many of you know, an emeritus professor at the law school. I co-teach Democracy and Disagreement with Deborah Satz, a philosophy professor and dean of the School of Humanities and Sciences. And Kaisa Goodman and Gabe Malik, sitting in back, serve as our TAs. Deborah is unable to participate today. In her absence, let me say a few introductory words about the motivation for this course. It's premised on the essential role of disagreement in a democracy, ranging from arguments over COVID policy to gender-affirming care, voting procedures, internet regulation. Disagreement by itself is not a cause for concern. We should expect that a democratic society, one based on the equal freedom and equal status of its members, that reasonable people will disagree about many things. Disagreement is a feature of a democratic society, not a bug. But not all disagreement is reasonable or productive. Sometimes people fail to consider inconvenient facts and close their minds to evidence and reasoning that does not support their favored views. In addition, and all too often on online platforms, a culture of incivility prevails with respect to those with whom we disagree. By civility, we do not mean politeness. We mean treating other people with respect, even when they hold different views on matters that make a great deal of very important to you. This uncivil closing of the mind is especially a concern for a university whose mission encompasses the search for truth, both in research and in educating students for their roles as citizens and voters, not just in the US, but wherever they reside, and as policymakers. The search for truth absolutely depends on the free exchange of ideas and openness to questioning received opinions. History shows us how often we get things wrong, even when we're trying to get at the truth. Education has two main goals: imparting knowledge and teaching critical thinking. John Dewey, the 19th, early 20th century philosopher, defines critical thinking as the active, persistent, and careful consideration of any belief or supposed form of knowledge in the light of the grounds that support it and further conclusions to which it tends. Especially when your own beliefs are subject to critical inquiry, it may make you uncomfortable. But as Hannah Holborn Gray, former president of the University of Chicago, remarked, education should not be intended to make people comfortable, it's meant to make them think. While critical inquiry can be a solo endeavor, it usually occurs through critical discourse with others, not just in the classroom, but in dorms, dining rooms, and elsewhere. At universities throughout the US, students who say the wrong thing are in danger of being ostracized, canceled, or doxxed. Our course is just one of a number of initiatives at Stanford designed to counter this phenomenon. Each week features scholars who disagree, sometimes quite strongly about major policy issues. But each is committed to following the evidence and to try to present reasons that others can understand and acknowledge. Our goal is to provide models for how experts in a field can disagree critically but respectfully in ways that deepen your knowledge of the topics. Each class is focused on a different topic, with guest speakers presenting typically about 10 minutes each, and then joining us for a conversation on stage. And then after the first hour or so, the floor will be open to questions or comments from you, and we expect that you will have many today, since this involves your own futures more than some of the other issues. We're also going to survey you, as usual, at the beginning and end of the conversation to see whether people's minds were changed. But even when minds are not moved, we hope the class gives you an appreciation for the views behind the views, the reasoning behind the views you reject. So let me introduce our two speakers today. We'll lead off with Bharat Chandar, an economist with the Stanford Digital Economy Lab, an Institute for Human-Centered AI, and also a senior fellow at the Microsoft AI and Economy Institute. He researches labor markets, impact of AI, His research has been cited in major publications. He received his PhD in economics from the Stanford School of Business in 2025. Before coming to Stanford, he held positions as an economist with Uber, Oracle, and the Federal Reserve Bank in New York. Rob Reich is a political theorist, a professor of social ethics in science and technology, and a senior fellow at the Stanford Institute for HAI. In 2024-25, he was in public service leave as senior advisor to the United States Artificial Intelligence Safety Institute. Rob is co-author of System Error, Where Big Tech Went Wrong and How We Can Reboot. Before turning to technology, Rob focused on issues of democracy in education and in philanthropy, including a very thoughtful book, which we have disagreed with publicly, in public often, Just Giving, Why Philanthropy is Failing Democracy and How It Can Do Better. He also created the global movement Giving Tuesday and served as inaugural board chair. Rob holds a PhD from the Stanford Graduate School of Education. And with that, I turn it over to Bharat.
Thank you, everyone. We face uncertainty about the future of human labor in a world with advanced artificial intelligence. The Overton window shifts as quickly as capabilities evolve. Today, discussions about AI systems that write the code to improve themselves are mainstream. Commentary now often asks when rather than if, and how transformative rather than whether possible at all. We are bracing for a world that looks very different than the one we know today. A number of institutions may have to be rebuilt. The new society may be far more bountiful than the one we have today. AI scientists may rapidly lead to breakthroughs in science, giving us longer and healthier lives. And a range of goods may become trivially cheap to produce, making technologies that are barely imaginable available to billions of people. These boons will coincide with major transitions politically, socially, and economically. The challenge and opportunity is to weather the transition in a way that leads to growing human flourishing, rather than allowing the disruption to be debilitating. Rob and I, and the rest of the people in this room, want to advance that mission. Central to that goal is imagining the role of human work in a scenario with advanced AI systems. Let's start with some basics about work. Concern about the effect of technology on work extends as far back as the 1500s, when Queen Elizabeth twice denied a patent for the stock frame knitting machine because of her concern for the employment of hand knitters. Despite her efforts, the Queen could not stop technological change. We have become many times more productive at producing textiles and other goods since the 1500s. At the same time, the unemployment rate in the United States today is under 5%. Despite technology automating vast swathes of labor, we still work, in some cases more than we did in the past. Why is this? Well, at the same time technology automates work, humans have created new forms of work and sorted into fields with rising demand for workers. Since 1940, far fewer people work in agriculture, with many more working in professional, managerial, and administrative roles. This pattern reflects two characteristics. The first is non-satiation. When we automate the production of bread, we are not content eating infinite bread. We create demand for other goods, some of which already exist, and some of which are new things we think up, like smartphones or advanced AI. The second is generality. Humans have been much more malleable than technology. New inventions may automate individual processes in the economy, but workers have had dominion over machines in their flexibility to perform an enormous range of tasks. Even if some tasks disappear, there are plenty more to spend time on, including new ones that get thought up. This is what differentiated the human from the horse. In 1910, there were 25 million horses in the US, and today we have about a quarter of that. Horses cannot outpace mechanization and the automobile. The marginal value of horses in the production process fell below the marginal cost of ensuring their subsistence, so we don't use them for production anymore. Horses didn't have the generality to do new things when their role in transportation and industry disappeared. Humans, because we are intelligent and dexterous, haven't had this problem as technology has advanced. The primary question with artificial intelligence, and the reason people speculate on whether it might be different this time, is its generality. Its intelligence may be jagged, but it is advancing rapidly. And it may not be dexterous, but how confident are we that it never will be, especially as we watch videos of Chinese robots performing intricate martial arts sequences? What if humans lose the advantage they had to do new tasks? Here are 10 predictions about the future of labor. I don't hold these with high confidence, but they are my current view of plausible scenarios. Number 1, humans will not want to outsource all labor to AI. I assume Rob does not want this to happen, and neither do I. Too many aspects of running a well-functioning society for humans do not scale with intelligence. Would we ever really trust AI to make collective decisions on our behalf just because it is more intelligent than us? Would you be happy delegating abortion, immigration, or redistributive policy to an AI just because it is smarter than you? Humans will want to be involved when there are normative stakes. Even if AI becomes exceptional at learning human preferences, humans refine those preferences by doing the hard work of deliberation and reflection. Automating this process seems inconsistent with a society that prioritizes human flourishing. Number 2, humans will also want to be involved in shaping the direction of consumption goods for similar reasons, and some tasks like chess or art have inherent demand for human performance even if machines are more productive. Number 3, by implication, if we do outsource all labor to AI, a lot has gone wrong in society. Whether or not any of us are working will probably not be the first order social challenge. Number 4, this may still result in lower structural levels of formal labor, especially under certain redistributive regimes. Not all of us need to be lawyers, politicians, influencers, or artists. Number 5, what matters is less the end state and more the transition. Too much of the discussion centers on whether anyone will work at all, instead of how we will navigate the social changes that occur as we transition to whatever the end state is. Number 6, in the medium to long run, it will be extremely challenging to shape the direction of AI model development to become more augmentative to humans. And I think this is where Rob and I might have the most disagreement. My views on this have shifted over time, in part from reading pieces like The Bitter Lesson by Rich Sutton. Somehow we are supposed to build an AI that is general, but not so general that it replaces human work. Number 7, augmentative AI may be doable in the short to medium term, and I think it is a worthy goal. We should seek ways to use AI to make work better and wages higher, especially for low-paid critical work in healthcare and education. This will be most effective at the application layer rather than the model development layer. We should also invest in AI as a tool for learning, which will help people manage transitions to new work if AI leads to job displacement. It's also a robustly good strategy, making us better off in any state of the world, since it increases our capabilities to make well-informed decisions in our own interests and those of society. Number 8, in the long run, I'm skeptical that these investments on their own will prevent the development of a general artificial intelligence that exceeds human capacity in essentially all domains of work that scale with intelligence and dexterity. Number 9, while this reality will lead to enormous increases in output, it will also lead to political economy challenges. We are already starting to see them with the US government seeking to exert greater control over frontier labs like Anthropic. The development of advanced general AI systems will have effects across society. And number 10, I hold this view tentatively, but in the long run, the primary decision society will have to make is not whether to make AI more augmentative to work, but on acceptable forms of use from a safety and a normative perspective. This could include a decision of whether to continue development at all. So in short, I view developing augmentative AI as a worthy goal in the short to medium term to boost human well-being and help manage the transition to a new society. In the long run, I do not think it will matter that much, except in its potential role over that transition. Finally, though I emphasize that the more immediate focus should be the transition to whatever comes next, I want to offer some perspective on the normative value of paid formal work. I don't know how much inherent value we get from work, but we should be open to the idea that a world with structurally lower formal employment rates might not be so bad or so foreign to the human experience. Across time and space, we have seen enormous variation in the extent of formal work, from hunter-gatherers who work 15 hours a week to the 40+% of the working age population outside of the formal labor force today. They may have something to say about whether formal labor is central to their lives. In Jane Austen's novels, high society spends the bulk of their time on hobbies and social engagements. That lifestyle was considered aspirational. Now, field experiments suggest people really do prefer to work over and above monetary compensation, so this is not at all cut and dry. But in some ways, I hope we reach a world where we have such abundance that people can voluntarily choose to not work if they want to. The real work is ensuring we manage to transition towards that possibility. Thank you.
Is this on? You can hear me? All right, I'm a bit more of a wanderer of a presenter, so I think I'm going to avoid the podium. And if you're okay with me wandering, I'm going to wander a bit. It's a real pleasure to be here. We're talking about a topic of extraordinary importance, and the sort of question at the outset here is, will AI produce massive unemployment? I want to say that in Bharat Chandar, we have one of the world's foremost economic experts on this topic. His 2025 paper with some colleagues on canaries in the coal mine about the implications of frontier AI for early signs of unemployment. It's really some of the best work that's out there. And I appreciate in his opening remarks the thoughtfulness with which he presented some of the research he's done and the broader views, inviting perhaps, in my experience, an atypical normative frame to accompany the social scientific frame. Would it be a good world if AI were to automate away much or perhaps all work? Bharat's thoughtfulness is, in my experience, not typical of our garden variety tech CEOs, who are proud and tend to communicate about the inevitability of automation and of predictions, therefore, of massive unemployment. As a friend put it to me yesterday, the basic message to the ordinary worker of a Silicon Valley AI leader is, we're going to get rich, you're going to lose your job. That's not a lovely vision for the future, but I appreciate that Bharat has offered us a different one, a lovelier one. I want to make 4 points in reaction to the question in front of us about AI bringing about massive unemployment that will, I hope, set up some disagreement and dialogue here with Bharat and with you. Point number 1 is a disagreement about how to think about the question, will AI produce massive unemployment? Bharat is a social scientist. He offered you 10 predictions. I'm a philosopher. I'm less interested in predicting what is going to happen than understanding what we might think should happen. And as a result, I want to communicate to you that when we think about the intersection between AI and work, we should think of it not only as a prediction problem, what is going to happen to us, but we should think of it as a design problem. What can we do to shape the outcomes that we want? That's to ask a normative question, a design question, in addition to the predictive methodological toolkit that an economist brings to the table. So, in simple language, I might be inclined not to offer you 10 predictions, but 10 arguments about what we can do today to shape the AI future we want, rather than thinking our task is passively to await the AI tsunami and see how we can react in kind. Point 2. Let's take as a beginning point of argument, nevertheless, Bharat's starting point, the prediction orientation rather than the design orientation. Let's imagine that we get up and running the best social science available, which Bharat and colleagues have done in order to understand the early implications of the AI transition, the AI adoption into the labor market, into work. The question asked us, is AI going to bring about massive unemployment? And as Bharat shared with you, there have been points in time in history, the introduction of the loom that automated weaving, in which many people have expressed anxiety that earlier forms of technological innovation would produce massive unemployment. Now, there's a difference here, and Bharat mentioned it as well, between temporary job displacement, people who lose their jobs to a machine, and then permanent job reduction or structural unemployment. The question before us today, will AI lead to massive unemployment, doesn't specify which of those two. Will AI just displace people who will find other kinds of work, or will AI lead, perhaps in virtue of its generality, to the permanent reduction of paid labor? You can make your own mind up about whether one or the other is more likely, or perhaps one or the other is more desirable. But what I want to suggest, I think partly in some reaction to what Bharat had to say, is that if we look over the course of time in history, we find that it's relatively easy to observe when jobs go away, because people are the ones losing them, and it's harder to observe the slow, gradual adoption of new jobs and new categories of labor. One way to illustrate this is if you go and you find official data on job categories and job occupations and tasks, the kind of data that economists will use all the time, the listing of job descriptions and job categories in the year 2020, more than half of the job descriptions did not exist 100 years ago. So these are job categories that were brought about partly because of or in reaction to technological adoption within the workplace. Maybe if you want an example of what I have in mind here, sometimes new technologies bring about the need for new kinds of work. If you follow AI closely these days, you know that companies now hire for somebody called a red teamer, someone whose job is inside the company to stress test an AI model to see if you can break it and get it to do something that the company wouldn't want you to do. Red teaming as a job description is not something that has been present in AI companies until just recently. It is a new job that didn't exist before. That's one possibility about what may happen over time, so that we might have a short time horizon of unemployment, but a medium time horizon of job creation that has in fact been the historical pattern over the course of the past 200 years. Third point, Bharat anticipated this already by introducing the distinction between automation and augmentation. I want to announce myself here as being on team augmentation. Some science and technology automates work, like the loom, like the combine that automates harvesting, that displaced many people from agricultural labor. Other novel technologies and scientific discoveries augment human beings. The microscope, the telescope, the construction crane, eyeglasses. These extend and amplify what it is human beings can do, but they do not replace a human being in the workplace. They make possible things like building a skyscraper that a human couldn't do without the technology, but they don't automate what it is the human does. It is a design possibility for our AI future to choose to try more AI augmentation. And I want to report to you that in my judgment, we are trapped in the cramped imagination of tech leaders who think that AI automation is the only possibility. Let me give one other example of this to try to engage directly with Bharat's work. He's done, along with other economists, interesting work on trying to study whether or not the use of current AI chatbot tools, large language models, tends towards automative uses or augmentive uses. The various methods differ, but basically this distinction between automation and augmentation is adopted by people trying to study the use of AI tools. And I find the methodological approach flawed for the following reason. If any of you have used Claude or ChatGPT recently, you've noticed that in the past 9 months, the prompt bar design has changed. Underneath the prompt bar are now a bunch of radio buttons. And the radio buttons say things like code, or study, or learn. If you go to the prompt bar and you don't click learn and you put in a math problem, you get the answer. It automates the solution. If instead you click the button learn and you put in the same math problem, it will flip its design into an augmentation mode to tutor you to get the answer. Which is to say, to use the language of an economist, studying human use of AI tools and how they use tools for automation or augmentation purposes is dependent upon the design choices of people in the tech companies. There's an endogeneity to clicking on learn or not to determine what kinds of use is more or less likely. I don't want to get into the details of what a well-created study would look like. What I want to focus your attention on is that it is eminently possible to design AI tools for augmenting purposes. And I think the fact of the matter is we're not really trying. Fourth and final point, what kind of world might we want, even if, as Bharat suggests, we get over the long run, because of the generality of AI, an on balance automating future rather than augmenting future? And I want to consider this fourth point, the Alyssa Liu objection. Alyssa Liu, of course, the Olympic gold winning skater from the Bay Area. If you watched any of her amazing gold winning performance and interviews, she said these wonderful things. She said, you know, I like to suffer. The hard work is an important part of the journey. One of the reasons people sometimes say automation should come about is because drudgery and hard work is better done by machines. And I want to suggest that we listen to Alyssa Liu and remind ourselves that sometimes hard work, repetitive labor, and drudgery is the necessary way station to excellence. And if we wish all hard work away, because machines could do it, we might lose out on the opportunity for excellence. And let's focus for another moment there on that aspiration, human excellence, even if machines could do the task or the work just as well as or better than a human. Isn't there something lovely and important about striving for excellence as a human being that should give us reasons to prefer human activity in the workforce? Imagine if in the year 2040, because of the rise of AI and the rise of humanoid robots, have AI minds implanted into them, the 2040 Olympics were a competition of national robotic teams. And we were not watching the competition between humans to strive to be the most excellent in the world, but we were watching a robot competition in a national way. Does that sound like a future you would wish for? If you care about excellence as a human, you have a reason to care about it even if machines could be better. And that's a future worth fighting for. So we've got a design versus a prediction orientation. We've got the idea, second, that even if we accept prediction as our frame, we need not think that the ultimate future to predict is one in which jobs go away permanently, because humans over the course of history have shown the resilient ability to create new jobs. Third, we have the possibility to chase an AI future that is not automating, but that is augmenting. And fourth, we should hang on to the human ideals of excellence and hard work, even if machines can do things better. Thanks.
Hello. Thank you. That was great. So my response is actually just a bunch of questions, just so I can clarify your perspective on these issues. So to start, well, let's just start from the top. So my definition of AGI that I gave in my opening statement was artificial intelligence that exceeds the capacity of humans, essentially on any intellectual or task or any task that requires dexterity. So is that along the lines of your definition as well?
I'm happy to accept it, but I'll note that in my estimation, when I hear many people talk about AGI, I sometimes think what they mean by it is that in addition to task completion as well as or better than any human, they also mean the ability to select the goals or the tasks worth pursuing. And if by AGI we also mean the capacity to the machine sets its own ends, I'm not sure how to evaluate the likelihood of AGI arriving. On the task performance, it seems like we're on a path toward it.
Okay, so I think we're both in agreement there. I think, like I mentioned, I'm not sure that normatively we want to outsource all social decisions to AI. So, okay, so let's just take that definition as given for now, because I think we both agree. So, do you view this definition of AGI as possible but undesirable or impossible?
Mere task completion? Do I think it's possible? Yeah, I think it's possible and undesirable.
Okay, so if it is undesirable, is your view that AI should be restricted from certain types of capabilities in perpetuity?
No. What was the name of the queen who passed
Elizabeth.
the law? Queen Elizabeth?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think that's the only option available to us. So, for example, if you're following, the kind of quick progression in the capabilities of frontier models and the kind of leaderboards when someone says, oh, well, this new model just came out and it's better even than the other one because it's advanced in its capabilities. The basic framework we have for measuring that is what's called administering a benchmark or a test or an evaluation to a model. Take the bar exam and give it to the AI. Take PhD level science questions, the Math Olympiad or whatever it is. This entire benchmark framework proceeds from an assumption that all we're looking for with the AI model is automation. We're not asking a question, what if we measured what an AI and a human could do together? So this is all just to say to you that it's possible that even if AIs on their own, AGI, could do all tasks, maybe human AGI collaboration could do the tasks better than AGI alone, and then we don't need Queen Elizabeth to pass a law because we would have a reason to collaborate with the machine and do things even better.
So I guess my question here is, do you view that as persisting in perpetuity, where humans in the loop are adding value relative to the AI on its own? And if it's not in perpetuity, then over what time horizon are we talking about? Like, if this is a characteristic of AI over the next 20 years, but then it's not a characteristic of AI after that, are we just talking about this 20-year period, or are we talking about this is how it's going to be in perpetuity?
Yeah, I mean, the honest answer there is I don't know how to put a timeline on things all that confidently, but I think what sits behind your question is either the worry or the prediction that if we extrapolate out a sufficiently small number of decades, we'll have AGI or artificial superintelligence, and it will just be awesome and do everything in an autonomous mode. And what I want to suggest is that I think there are examples of novel technologies or scientific discoveries whose end state is augmentative, not where augmentation is a kind of transition to a fully automated future. So to use one example in which it is a transition, take autonomous vehicles. There's an actual official classification system of different levels of autonomy where still humans have some responsibility, but the end goal is, can we develop these AI systems and sensors within cars that fully automate driving? But if you looked at the examples I gave before of the telescope, the microscope, or other kinds of activities that are forms of paid labor, the end goal is augmentation. So let me give you an example of what I have in mind, just to give something concrete here. One set of my tasks as a faculty member is to teach a class or prepare to come to do what we're doing here on stage today. And you could identify a bunch of subtasks within it. I have to do a little research to prepare my notes. Maybe Paul and Deborah have to take attendance for people who come. Maybe there are slides to create. And then finally, of course, there's the discussion we're having. When we identify these different tasks, if I were in a classroom where attendance taking was a requirement and I could automate that task, I would. That would be a lovely addition to my work. And if I could use AI to augment creating slides, I would do that too. And maybe even AI would be good enough ultimately to automate slide creation. And I don't have to go back and forth all the time to prompt it. But doing what we're doing now, which is one of the tasks of teaching, being on stage to have a conversation about the topic, I don't want to automate that. You don't want my AI agent to show up here and participate in this debate. And I don't think you want your AI agent to do that either. So even if it were possible to have Bharat AI here and Rob AI here, that is not a future we would wish to have. So that automation destiny, even if it were possible, is nevertheless something to resist.
Yeah, so I actually agree with you on this issue. I think we're kind of conflating two different things. So what is the policy issue that we're trying to solve? Is it just that there's inherent value in doing hard work, or is that it's inherently important that people are doing formal paid work? Because I think you can do hard work even if AI is like doing all the work that we typically associate with formal paid work. Like maybe you still get inherent worth from giving a lecture, even if the AI would be better than you at doing that, and you can do that. But it's not clear to me like what the policy issue that we're solving here is. Like, are we trying to constrain the AI so that the human is the only one who can do that, or even if the AI can do that, we still want to encourage people to do this kind of work?
Yeah, well, so two responses, but then I do think that we're hopscotching around some different ideas. So one, I want to try to entertain within our conversation not just a predictive orientation, but a design or normative orientation. I don't think you disagree necessarily with that. Are we striving for a world in which there's no paid labor, but people choose, nevertheless, voluntarily? We've got some big universal basic income. Everyone gets it. The AI future is abundant. People can retire to do their hobbies. I mean, you'll remember, there's a company called Mechanize Inc., a new startup in San Francisco. And if you look at their homepage, it says that their mission is the full automation of the economy. They would like to take every single person's paid job. The market potential here is large, $18 trillion per year. Like, that's a nice little pitch line to a venture capitalist. So one of the co-founders came to campus 6 months ago. Bharat was in the room. And I said, well, what's the social vision? How do we handle this future that you're trying to bring into existence? And I had a book with me called Fully Automated Luxury Communism, a radical left-wing tech utopian manifesto that says, bring on AI automation, where we get massive abundance, people can have a very generous basic income, we all can just pursue our hobbies, and we have a kind of communist utopia. I mean, I'm open to that as a possibility. I don't know how much weight I want to put on the idea that we should be paid for the work we do. I will suggest that I would have thought it's a basic lesson of an economist that a variety of incentive structures that include the ability to be remunerated for one's labor tend on balance to motivate people rather than just for them to be so self-disciplined that they pursue their hobbies vigorously. We might want incentives like pay or merit pay to motivate people, and I take that lesson from economists.
Yeah, well, what I'm saying is that I think that world where you're paying people to do things that you think are socially valuable, whether it's thinking deeply about big policy questions or democracy and disagreement like we're doing here today, I think that is consistent with a world where it still doesn't make sense for humans to be involved in labor. And I think that idea that like maybe there's just no value in us being involved in implementation, but maybe we're still involved in the normative decision making about like what it is that we want to pursue. But like, in terms of actual implementation of tasks in the economy, like we're just not very valuable in that process anymore because AI is much more capable of it. And maybe we can still incentivize certain behaviors that we want people to pursue, even if it's not in the structure that we've been doing that over the past few hundred years with, a market economy.
I mean, if we're talking about predictions, I'm open to that as a possibility. I don't think I want to design for that future, however.
And why is that?
Because, as I say, I think there's something important about human dignity, the significance to someone's identity and sense of self-worth, that they engage in a kind of project of cooperation with others for mutual advantage, in which labor and laboring together is one of the ways to establish one's self-worth in a community. And if you say the machines are doing everything and we're getting a payout in order to pursue our hobbies, I worry about the preservation of human dignity in that mix.
Okay, so I agree with you that normatively we want to preserve human dignity, via people doing the hard work of, thinking deeply about different issues. And I think where I disagree with you is like on the mechanism to make that happen. So, well, first of all, like, what do you view as a mechanism to make that happen? So in my view, I don't think the solution to that problem is to restrict the development of AI in some way that prevents it from reaching capabilities in certain dimensions, because I don't think that's really possible.
Yeah.
Because the AIs are so general that even if you benchmark it along things that are augmentative, I just don't have, like, the models today are better essentially across the board compared to the models yesterday.
Let's focus on that for just a second, because if you have a different view about this, I want to make sure I've got it right. So some colleagues of Bharat's, ours here at Stanford in the Digital Economy Lab, have introduced this idea of a so-called centaur evaluation, a centaur half man, half horse. And the idea is to administer tests and evaluations to AI models that are testing what an AI and a human together can do. And, to put it perhaps with a slight bit of extra drama to it, I don't think we've really tried very hard to develop centaur evaluations and then to test models around them, and then to have leaderboards, perhaps. Well, a human with this AI model can do much more than a human with this other AI model, and therefore we have a reason to have a leaderboard. So I'm open to the possibility, and I wonder if you are, that far from restricting through law the development of technology, I want to run the experiment of administering centaur evaluations to see what humans and AIs can do together that might, in my view, exceed even super-level AI intelligence, because if you add a human to the mix, you might be able to get something better at the task, for example. Now, I don't say this is inevitable. I just say we haven't even tried. So I'm not ready for those restrictive laws to say, don't design and accelerate the technology in the current fashion. I say, let's run the experiment of augmenting and testing for human-AI collaboration.
So I think this is fair. I am just quite skeptical that it's going to work. So I think that view that...
That what's going to work?
So that benchmarking...
AIs alone will be better than human and AIs together.
That benchmarking against centaur evaluations is going to meaningfully change the direction of the technology so that it becomes not automative to human labor. And I think there's two reasons for that. I think, number one, I think all these ideas were kind of developed in a pre-generative AI world where the technologies that we were developing were not general. They were very specific. And so in that world, I think it makes a lot of sense that you want to make your benchmarks centaur evaluations instead of Turing test style evaluations. But I think in a world where the models are extremely general, I just don't view that as a very effective approach for orienting the direction of the technology over the medium to long run. And I actually think that is arguably consistent with the view in that paper, because they talk about like 5 stages in the development of a technology where, in the middle stages of it, it is augmentative and like the centaur does better than the machine on its own or the human on its own. But in the end stage, it does end up being automative, and the machine on its own is better than the centaur. And my view is that because the models are so general, we're eventually going to hit that end state across a huge variety of tasks.
All right, so then this is good. So we're going to isolate, I think, one important area of disagreement. So if I respond to that and say, but what about the microscope or the telescope or the construction train? You say in response, but AI is different, it's general,
Yeah.
It's not task-specific. So that's why, the end state of augmentation there, that task-specific thing, doesn't apply to the AI era.
Yeah.
Okay, but then I say, as we started off with this colloquy, you have a definition of AGI or ASI, artificial superintelligence, that is superhuman task completion. And I asked, but what about goal setting and establishing a rational evaluation of what ends we should have, which is to say what tasks we should have? I'm not sure that AI gets us that.
Yeah.
AGI gets us that. And if it doesn't, if we settle on a definition of AGI that's just superhuman task completion, I still think there's an important role collaboratively for the goal setting, for the worthy goal setting, and that seems to me to introduce the centaur back into the equation.
So I'm with you on that. I think even if the AIs do develop really good normative intuition or something, so I have this, I've written about this, but I don't think that we want to be offloading normative tasks to AI because, or at least fully offloading normative tasks.
Philosophers will still be employed, I think.
No, they will, because there are certain things that don't scale with intelligence, and I think normative tasks are like the best example of that. So, you know, like you probably know someone who's really smart. You wouldn't go to that person who's really smart and take all of their views about the world and say, oh, this person is smarter than me, so I'll believe everything they say about abortion or immigration or whatever it is, right? You create your own opinions about these issues, even though that person is smarter than you. And likewise, like if an AI comes to me and tells me something about immigration and I don't agree with it, I'm not gonna like just take what it says wholeheartedly and take that as my opinion without any reflection. Because these are things where what determines my opinion on an issue is not just my intelligence, but also things like my background and my experience and just my reflection on an issue and what I think is right and wrong. And I agree with you that we should not be totally offloading all these tasks to AI. I think that doesn't make any sense. So in these specific cases, I do agree that there's a role for centaur evaluation in the sense that the AI can give me information about a topic and I can still form my own opinion, but I can't offload my formation of that opinion to the AI on my own.
All right, well, I mean, in some respects, I have to say I'm so cheered by hearing this from Bharat because, you know, we're preserving the work of, the normative work for human beings, the work of philosophers as a profession. But the thing I want to say now is that kind of work, as you just admitted, the AI comes to you and says, here's what you should think about immigration or any number of tasks. I think the picture you gave is that, that's maybe a small number of things that actually we do on a daily or weekly basis. But these normative questions, what it means to live well, to form a view about any number of relevant topics and to inform ourselves, that's the bread and butter of an ordinary human existence, decide how to live a better life rather than a worse life, which is to say, simply, we're all philosophers in this respect, asking ourselves the Socratic question about how to live an examined life and how to live well. And if you're telling me that that's the distinctive work that even AI can't do, then I feel like we're okay.
So I think we're in agreement on that, except I don't think that many people are going to be doing this for a living.
Everyone's a philosopher.
No, I agree with you, but like how many people do you actually want doing this as a job, full-time, like paid labor? Like,
this is a spot in the philosophy department for you too, Bharat, if you want one.
I mean, hey, if you want to give me a tenured position in the philosophy department, I would be glad to take it. But no, but
maybe that's how the labor market expands. Is the normative work is what gets paid. I mean, this is great news. Study philosophy starting next week.
Yeah, listen, there's a world in which that's possible. I don't think it's very likely, and I think there will be a lot of people who don't want to do that, and I think that's okay. And I think most people will not be doing that.
They'll want the hobbies.
Yeah, they'll want the hobbies, which I think is okay. I don't think that's like a bad thing.
So I have two questions for Rob, and I'm sure Bharat has some views about these. The first one is sort of an observation which may or may not be true, that the microscope and telescope actually show how something can slip from augmentation to automation, because the telescope or microscope with AI, you no longer need to have somebody with their eyes looking at it. You tell them what to look for. That's something the human has to
Yes.
decide.
Yes.
But at that point, if you're looking for, some small exploding something far away, the AI will find that. And my guess is that's true for things under the microscope as well.
Yeah, that may well be, and I mean, tell me if you disagree with this. I mean, one of the amazing accomplishments of the machine age is computer vision as a kind of achievement, which is to say that the computer can do the seeing rather than the human. The human still has to give it an initial prompt and goal. But for what it's worth, like that doesn't apply to the eyeglasses, and I mean, I'm not sure what it would mean to automate the augmentation that's sitting on my face right now. So the actual task of human vision can be augmented but not automated.
Okay, now my bigger question for you, and then we'll turn it over to all of you out there. So you began by saying, and it's a very powerful observation, that what you're the issue is not predicting, the issue is designing for the future. And then the question is, who gets to do the design, and in particular, who has power over how the design is implemented? So economists and many of us think markets do. The design is a response to the markets. So corporations will do the design in response to what consumers or other companies want. The alternative is government will do the design by regulation. But given the many branches where one can go between augmentation and automation, what are the forces that are going to design things toward augmentation rather than automation?
Good. I mean, I see this at a macro level and at a micro level, or to put it in the language you just used, Paul, government regulation and institutional incentive setting through the law, and then at the micro level, norms and various views of how humans can try one thing rather than another. So let me be concrete about this. At the risk of irritating Bharat here, if you had to reduce all of economics, the entire 100-year history or whatever of the entire discipline to 2 words, my answer to that would be incentives matter. And if we think about setting incentives within institutional structures, we're not faced with the option of passing the Queen Elizabeth Law to restrict the development of AI from a ban on it. We're faced with an array, a nearly infinite array of institutional choices. Can we provide tax incentives for hiring humans and taxes on purchasing machines, for example? Right now, the policy in the United States is the inverse. You get a tax credit for purchasing machinery. You pay additional taxes for hiring a human. That's an incentive structure which puts a thumb on the scale of automation. It doesn't have to be that way. So I could keep going with the macro picture, but I think the more interesting one is the micro picture, the norms. I mean, I have a kind of the lesson I learned from hanging out with computer scientists over the past 10 years is that within the history of computer science itself, not like the eccentric idea of a philosopher, is an augmentation vision for like the very purpose of being a computer scientist is to develop machines that augment humans, rather than the John McCarthy vision of artificial intelligence to automate what it is that humans do. And the person I point to, your colleagues do as well, Douglas Engelbart here at the Stanford Research Institute, the one who designed the very first computer mouse, a whole bunch of things, gave the so-called mother of all demos in 1968. There's been within the history of computer science this tradition of augmentation. And it seems to me that McCarthy and Turing have won out in our AI age. And would I wish for there to be people inspired by an Engelbartian augmentation vision in AI, not imposed by law, but spirited by the possibility of augmentation as outlined by someone like Engelbart? I just don't think we're trying very hard. Computer scientists are trying very hard. And one way of thinking about this is looking at the flow of venture capital. A colleague of mine named Roy Bahat, who runs an early seed AI investment firm in San Francisco called Bloomberg Beta, has written a piece called "Can We Build Better AI? The Case of the Loom and the Crane, the construction crane." And he says, his observation is that Silicon Valley is awash in experiments in funding AI loom startups. And his question is, where are the experiments in AI construction crane startups, AI augmentation? I don't want laws to pass that constrain or tell capital what it should be doing. I think we're in a cramped imagination of Sand Hill Road at the moment.
If I could just say something about that, I think part of the reason that you're not seeing it right now is no one wants to build anything, and no one wants to build those applications because they see the models developing very rapidly and extremely generally, and so building any B2B SaaS product right now is precarious, and building any software product right now seems a little precarious because in 3 months, maybe I can use Claude Code to replicate that product in like 5 seconds. So I think that's the situation that we're in right now. And in my view, like building these kinds of applications that are more augmentative in nature is becoming more and more tenuous because of the generality of these models.
But can I just, gently push back on that? And the entire domain, the entire sector of education seems to me to invite augmentation. Mm-hmm. We don't want to automate the process of human learning. We want to augment it. So from a design perspective, the example I gave of pressing the radio button in the, in the prompt bar, I want to learn. I mean, I don't think this is like a technical, really, really difficult challenge. It seems to me rather trivially simple. And when you say no one wants to try augmenting because of this, challenge about software going away with Claude Code, I point to the entire field of educational technology with AI and say, bring me the augmentation. What's wrong with that?
No, sure. I mean, I did write about...
There's a good business there.
Well, I'm not sure there's a good business, but I still think it's a worthy goal. I did write that essay about learning is augmentation, and I do think it's one of the best ways that
It's a good essay.
Thank you. So I agree with you about that. We should invest a lot in learning, and one of the reasons that I think we should do that is because it's robust. So in any state of the world, if you're right and we can build a world where AI is more augmentative, it's clearly useful. And if we can't do that, it's still useful because we can do a much better job at doing these kind of normative evaluations that we were talking about previously. So in my view, we should be investing in learning because it's a robustly good solution.
So go ahead, Bharat.
Well, I was just going to say something about the original question you raised, which is about where the delegation should be about how to shape the technology. And this is something that I think I've been really conflicted about over the past couple weeks because I think the political institutions that are supposed to be dealing with this are just not equipped to do that right now. They move too slowly or they are arbitrary and capricious. And the alternative to that is letting the labs do it, which is non-democratic. So I really am at a bit of a loss to how this should actually be done in practice.
Yeah. So one last question for Rob, and then we'll put up the polling question as I'm asking this question, which is, how confident are you that 5 years from now, much of teaching, say in the STEM fields, will be done by AI rather than by human teachers? Or will not be done by AI rather than human teachers?
I mean, I think we've run a version of that experiment with MOOCs, where for people who have, don't have access to an actual school or at least have an internet access, they can get access. So if you count any form of STEM education in what you're describing as opposed to existing, university-based or school-based learning, where I do think that will be remain more of a human activity, augmented perhaps in various means, but not replaced by AI. And I mean, you can see Paul and I have these ongoing disagreements often in public, and I've always learned a ton from Paul, and I feel like I overextend myself. I'm about to now, again, at some risk of Paul correcting me in a way. But I want to say, being here at Stanford for 30 years, I've experienced, as you have living in Silicon Valley, a kind of wave after wave of a confident pronouncement by a technologist that, like, in 5 or 10 years, the technology is going to wash away the institutional arrangements and creative destruction is upon us, and you like take the red pill and get ready for the new future. And what I want to say about teaching and learning and about schools is that, with the exception of the Catholic Church, the institutional arrangement of higher education goes back hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years. It's lasted longer than most governments or societies have. And the idea that a new technology comes along and washes it away in such a fashion to make it unrecognizable just seems to me another example of the frequent historical ignorance of technologists.
We'll have a reunion in 5 years and see how
Yes, and
it
we'll
went.
see what happens.
And here is the polling question again. So it went from 73 or 74% yes to diminished some, but probably not a significant amount. And now, would you put up the attendance sheet? And then please come to the microphones. I expect that some of you will have questions.
Look, it's been automated.
Surely there's some questions. You have to go to the microphone. Otherwise, nobody can hear you. Great, let's begin.
Okay, great. This question is for both of you, but maybe brought, since you spoke on this a bit more. So you mentioned that even with artificial general intelligence, there will always be goal setting, might be beneficial for humans to at least supplement or set the initial goal, set the direction. And then the conversation, I think, kind of maybe conflated this, minimized it to only the realm of philosophers, who of course do this at the highest level. I'm also a philosophy major, so very much like that sentiment. But it strikes me that in all of our jobs we do goal setting. So I'm a business psychologist that consults with executives. A lot of the time I'm dealing with conflating goals, which one should I prioritize, which one should take precedence, which one should be ignored. So am I understanding you correctly in saying that even if artificial general intelligence came around, that there would always be a place for that part of my job? Or is that a lower level of goal setting that should be automated or augmented or what have you?
Yeah, I think this is a really good question. So in my view, it kind of depends. So in cases where there's a clear objective that you're trying to optimize, and it's well specified what that objective is, whether it's profit or whatever, the model can just kind of go off and do that. Now, there are some exceptions to that. So we can have AI that's really, really good at producing goods, but we also, like I mentioned, are never satiated when we want new and new types of goods. And part of the, one of the jobs that could exist is a human being who tells the model, this is what I want. And not only is it something that I want, but other people want this too. And so you should pay me to tell you what I want, because it's going to be valuable both to myself, but to other people as well. So kind of like an influencer or something. So you could imagine a world in which that is a job that grows in importance. Again, I don't know how many people are going to be doing that, but I view that as also somewhat normative in the sense that it's specifying what it is that people want. And so it's kind of like a variation on the other type of normative questions that I was mentioning before.
Got it.
And again, I don't know how many people are going to be doing that job, but I do think that that's like a plausible job that could exist.
Got it. May I make one response to
Yeah.
that? Or, okay. It strikes me that in order to do that kind of goal setting, so what you mentioned, not just the simple, low level goal setting, for lack of a better word, but the higher level goal setting, to be good at that, it strikes me you need to go through the lower levels to gain that intuition, pattern recognition.
Yeah.
You can't come in on day one as an entry level employee and say, I'm going to take the only job that exists here, which is the higher level goal setting, because all the grunt work has been automated. So that strikes me as kind of a design problem if those are the only jobs that are left.
Yeah, I agree. And we'll probably need public policy to enable people to reach those types of jobs.
Awesome. Thank you.
Hi, thank you so much both for speaking to us about this issue. I'm actually a computer science major, so forgive me if I'm going to be, I guess, making assumptions about automation that you might disagree with Rob. But I guess I have two kind of questions for both of you. One being that I think recently, last week, Jack Dorsey and Block, I guess previously Square, fired 4,000 out of their 10,000 employees. So that's essentially about half of their company. And they're probably one of the first to take such a big bet on restructuring their entire company around AI first and AI native infrastructure. So I'm wondering what your thoughts are on moves like that and how, I guess, that also resulted in a huge spike in their stock prices. And I think that might end up being something that influences other tech leaders to make similar decisions. So I'd love to know your thoughts on that. And then I think a second question I have to that is, you've talked a lot about this normative and kind of augmentative kind of capabilities that we should be striving for with AI and human collaboration. But I guess my concern with that is that you essentially right now can define AI agents to have personalities, right? So you can essentially say, okay, be the naysayer of this one problem, be the enthusiast, and kind of define all these roles that you would initially see in human decision making, and essentially simulate how different people and different perspectives work together to find a final answer. And we're already seeing that in multi-agentic systems. So I guess I'm wondering how you reconcile that with what you think is possible.
So on the first question, I think it's kind of empirical. I don't feel super comfortable making too many statements about what is causing Block to do layoffs. I think it's very controversial. A lot of people are claiming it's AI washing, and I don't know if I want to take a very strong stance about that, but maybe it's emblematic of things that may happen in the future. We'll have to see, especially in the short term. Now, your second question, okay, sorry. So you were asking basically, you can simulate deliberation using agents by having them take on different personalities. So I think that is not sufficient for the world that we want in the future. And the reason that's the case is because our normative preferences are a function of us doing deliberation and reflection and things like that. And if we are not involved in that process, then it's not clear what our preferences even represent and whether the agent simulating that deliberation and reflection on its own is reflecting the things that we actually want as people. So I don't view it as a substitute for actually doing that on your own.
Yeah, I also don't have any deep comment about Jack Dorsey and Block other than to say it fits with the worry I have that our tech leaders, and in this case the market reaction, facilitate a seeming inevitability about automation. And that's chiefly what I want to resist here, that we have other alternatives, and it's not merely that normatively we ought to augment. I don't want to make the claim that augmentation is superior to automation. I want to make the claim that we aren't trying to see what augmentation could bring about, either from a macro institutional perspective or from a micro design perspective. And I would like to see examples of companies where the leadership decides to find various ways to use AI that augments their performance, whatever happens with the stock price happens, and to feel like that is as celebrated as the kind of Jack Dorsey move. As for the team of agents deliberating, yeah, I find the opportunities to do that one of the mechanisms of learning. So I would view that as an augmentation for any person around whatever issue they might decide to construct this, team of AI rivals, as it were, in order to figure out what to think.
Got it. Thank you.
I'm curious what you both think about the direction that AI will drive creative professions in? And also, imagine we reach that future where AI has taken over the $18 trillion economy. Would we be devoting ourselves to creative pursuits? I'm curious how you think that creativity and inherently human creation would play into AI.
Shall I take it first, Craig?
Sure. So I do think that there are cases where we just have a taste for humans to do things. A good example of this is that AI or models are way better at playing chess than humans are, but certainly during COVID, there was a huge explosion in interest in chess and watching humans play chess, and there wasn't as much of an interest in watching two computers play against each other. So there are certain cases where we just have a taste for watching humans do things, and one of those might be artistic professions or sports or things like that. And so it could represent something that more of us end up doing in the future, whether that's paid or not. So I certainly think that's plausible.
Almost 100 years ago, the economist John Maynard Keynes wrote this well-known essay called Economic Possibilities for Our Grandchildren. So in 1930, he wrote about the existence of what he called technological unemployment. This is one of these earlier predictions about how new technologies are going to displace people from the workforce. And notably in this essay, he said that he didn't necessarily think this would be a bad thing because it might present human beings, as long as the social kind of policy process was in place to ensure a broader distribution of some of the benefits from technological automation. It could enable people to have a shorter work week. It could enable people to pursue some of their hobbies. And he has this lovely line in which he says, and so, man will be confronted for the first time in his history with his permanent problem. How can he live wisely and agreeably and well? And it's a philosophical question that's worth considering in the future you were giving us. What would people do in a world of AI-generated abundance where even perhaps in some creative fields? I think when I discuss Keynes's essay with people, sometimes people think, wouldn't that be a glorious future? Like, finally, we could live wisely and agreeably and well, now that we didn't have to do work that was alienating or low wage or whatever it turned out to be. I think other people think about the idea of not having paid labor at all as a recipe for dystopia. That's a recipe for living badly. I, for the reasons I gestured at before, think that human dignity is to some extent tied up with social recognition of contributing to what we're doing together as a community. So simply having a cash payout from the machines doesn't lead me to be super optimistic about the preservation of human dignity, but I don't give that to you as like my deeply held conviction and everything else is wrong. I'm just worried about the prospects of human dignity, and if someone can solve that, I'd feel a lot better.
One small thing I want to add to that is it's also a function of policy choices that we want to make. So if we end up in a world where we correctly handle redistribution, like maybe that's more plausible, and I do hope we end up in that world.
Thank you guys for coming out here. It was great to hear the economic versus philosophical side of this debate. That was a super cool contrast. I really liked the sentiment of incentives matter, so I have two quick questions related to that idea, and I'd love to hear from both of you. The first one is, there was a lot of talk about this augmentation of human work. How do you create an incentive structure for firms and companies to develop AI tools to augment work when right now it's more profitable to offer an automated tool? And how do you create an incentive for firms to buy these augmentation tools rather than just automation tools? Because it's cheaper just to automate jobs rather than to augment them, in most cases that I've seen at least. And then on the other side of things, in terms of this abundance lifestyle, Bernie Sanders was on campus 2 weeks ago, and one of his big talking points was, he posed the question, do you really think that the Sam Altmans and Elon Musk's and Peter Thiel's of the world are going to consolidate all this power and wealth building these AI tools that can automate most jobs and then just decide wait, I'm going to give everyone a bunch of money and allow them to live this great life abundantly if all of this power is consolidated to a few people. So what's the incentive structure to allow society to live in abundance if AGI comes to fruition and that becomes the reality in which we live?
I think it's possible to put in place some incentives, but ultimately I think the realistic answer to that question is that there will be popular resistance to the kind of scenario that you described. So if it's a common sentiment, or at least in the ballpark it's a common sentiment, that what people hear when they hear tech leaders talk about AI is some version of I'm going to get rich and you're going to lose your job, and if there is rapid job displacement, that's not a recipe for a stable social order. And so incentives will be fine, but we'll have outright resistance from people that will lead, in at least a well-functioning democracy, politicians to make a set of policy choices that reflect the sensitivity, their sensitivities to, in a democratic society, the mass population.
Yeah, so I 100% agree with what he just said about that. Now, to get at your first question, I think that's about augmentation and creating incentives for augmentation. I think that's kind of getting at the core of maybe the disagreement here, is that I do think that doing that kind of incentive is, imposing incentives in that way could be valuable. On the other hand, it just seems to me like if the cost of producing bespoke software is going to like zero, then how much does this actually matter? I don't really know. Like you could give people subsidies for producing like augmentative instead of automative software or something. I don't know how much that'll actually make that much of a difference.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Can you speak to your predictions or aspirations for how this technological wave will wash over our Westphalian system, and how you see experimentation and variety in how nation states and societies respond to this technological change? Or it seems in the case of the internet's facilitated a lot of kind of global social, cultural convergence. And you see in the fights between American big tech companies and European states, the wielding of the power of these firms and these companies. So if you can speak to that and how democratic societies versus a totalitarian society, and in particular the Chinese totalitarian system, will respond differently and more adeptly to this change. Thank you.
Yeah, this is a really good question. So we've kept like a pretty focused or like ceteris paribus kind of discussion about like other things in the world not changing, but I think the amount of uncertainty on these fronts, like geopolitical struggle and things like that, probably dwarfs a lot of the uncertainty that we're talking about here. I mean, it's not just China. Like I just came back from traveling in India and Europe, and all the discussion there is about sovereign AI and making sure that their countries are not dependent on US AI or Chinese AI. There's also a lot of discussion about open models and whether they're just inherently unsafe. So, we're talking about the economics here, but there are a whole host of other uncertainties that may or may not be more important than the uncertainties that we have about these issues.
I'll just add, perhaps of interest, I mean, I take this from some of our colleagues here who work on geopolitics and geopolitics of AI. There's not just one arms race or AI race between the US and China. There are perhaps four, or I'll give you four of them. One is the race to AGI, which countries' models reach artificial general intelligence first. The second is the race to produce good enough AI that then becomes the mass adoption standard across the world. Maybe for many business uses, you don't need AGI, you just need good enough AI. And China's approach with mainly open models seems strategically to be aligned with generating dissemination of its AI models rather than US models. The third is to integrate AI into the military, and there, Ukraine has been the pioneer in trying to, innovate as a result of necessity, particularly with drones. And it seems to me an open question about whether or not AI integration into the military gives competitive or strategic advantages to relatively small players, how this interacts with the overarching nuclear umbrella that's been, one of the main features of geopolitical life for the past 80 years. So it's a hard one. And the fourth race is about the material infrastructure that sits beneath the software of the AI models, the energy, the data centers, the chips. And on that latter one, with the exception of the chips, there's likely to be many opportunities for countries beyond the US and China. In fact, there are already with the Mideast and other places trying to establish themselves as power players in the world of the material infrastructure.
So I'm gonna offer the last question, but you need not answer it if you haven't thought about it, which is how in the world which both of you predict, each of you predicts, will that affect the political structure of society? And I thought I had the last question, but I don't. So I have the penultimate question and then to you.
Okay, sorry.
No, I want to answer my question first.
Just wait a second.
If you've thought about that.
If it turns out that AI brings about a rapid displacement of labor, then in the short run, I imagine significant domestic or political instability because of the disruption that will bring about. I mean, the Trump administration, its AI action plan, says that its AI future is a pro-worker vision. And I'll confess that I don't see any evidence about or reason to think that we have a pro-worker AI strategy. In fact, I'm not sure what a pro-worker AI strategy would be unless you began rehearsing some of the things I've given about augmentation. So that political instability seems to me quite likely in the near future.
Yeah, I agree. I don't have much to add to that.
Hi. I have appreciated this conversation so far. For one, I'm an economics major writing a thesis in ethics and society, so it's been feel very seen. But I'm more interested in what Professor Rishi brought up about our desire for struggle and need for struggle. But I have felt like a kind of a spiral towards I guess, sterility and numbness in our society in many ways. I'm writing my thesis on urban development and homogeneity within New York City, but I'm curious how to restore or to resist that drive towards sterility and like restore some meaning or like restore a sense that human dignity matters. Yeah, I don't know, it's like a solution question.
Sure, that's a lovely final and very big question. I'll give a couple off the seat of my pants ideas here. In a political order that's defined by the protection of individual liberty, I think one of the natural outcomes of giving people liberty is that they choose to connect themselves to different projects, different values, different ends. They assemble themselves into different kinds of groups in associational life or in their own communities, and this is what produces pluralism and diversity in society, which tends then, over the course of time, to allow people to form different points of views in different communities that are at odds with one another. And democracy is, in certain respects, an institutional design or a technology, if you will, to handle deep and persistent disagreement amongst people who are otherwise free and equal citizens. And that means friction and contestation and argument and disagreement. That's a benefit of living in a democracy, not an obstacle to be overcome. And so if it should turn out that AI homogenizes a whole bunch of things, I think that will tend to cut against the otherwise desirable pluralism and diversity and disagreement and contestatory nature of civil society that is an enormous part of what it means to live in a flourishing democratic society.
Okay, thank you. Thanks.
Yeah, I think that was beautifully said. I guess I want to throw the question back to you a little bit. One, do you view this as getting worse over time? And number two, do you view it getting worse over time in part because of AI?
I do think it's getting worse over time. I'm really skeptical of AI. I don't want to place all of the blame on it, but I think it's a mix of like totally unregulated social media and lack of regulation, and also in terms of how much information we consume. But, yeah.
So thank you both for a very, very stimulating conversation.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.